All right, so I'll say it again. Welcome everybody to the ROI group for March 2021. We're really fortunate today to have two outstanding guests. One of them, of course, is Brad Cartier. Wave hi, Brad. There
Hello,
is
everyone.
Brad, and they said hello. And there's Major Gus. Gus, wave hi. Thank you for joining us. We're going to hear from. We're going to hear first from Brad, and Brad's going to cover two subjects near and dear to my heart. The first one is going to be talking about what he is doing to repurpose a golf course. I am such a bad golfer. I hate golf because I'm so bad at it. But the other thing about golf that I've never really liked is it consumes an awful lot of land. It consumes a lot of water. Fertilizer, insecticide, fungicides, of course, tremendous amount of CO2 from lawn cutting and everything else that goes on. And I don't have to tell people on the call today that 20 or 25 years ago when Tiger Woods was at his peak, golf enrollment and players in North America were about 30 million, and today it's under 20 million. So golf is in decline. To all the golfers on the call, please no hate mail. It is what it is, and there is a crying need to repurpose golf courses, and Brad has a brilliant idea. And then the second part of what Brad's going to do is he's going to talk about his new email newsletter called briefcase.email. .email is an actual extension, by the way. It's like .com, only it's .email. And you'll get to know Brad a little bit today. I've coached him for quite a while now. He's a father of four. I call him a Renaissance man because his interests are as wide as anybody else I know, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm going to introduce Gus as well, but I'll save that until we're about 45 minutes or 50 minutes from now, and I'll introduce Major Gus to you all. And he is going to be talking about stock market investing. Now, I know almost nothing about stock market investing. And in fact, if I pick a stock, you don't want to buy that stock. That's the general rule I go by. So I just don't know enough about it. And I wouldn't normally have asked somebody to come along and talk about the subject because we are really basically about two things in the ROI group. One is we're about building above average performing real estate portfolios, and two, owning some personal businesses for life. Mine is basically my coaching practice, and everybody on the call, I bet you, has some kind of side hustle going on. But Gus thinks so differently from me and from other people. He's a futurist, he's a forward thinker, he's a lateral thinker, and he's done so many amazing things that I thought, because I know so little about it, I can't give any guidance, but Gus can. And we're going to talk more about that in about 50 minutes. So we are recording. It goes on YouTube, as you know, unlisted, and everybody gets a copy of the URL, so you can replay it if you want to, and others who can't be here live can also replay it. We have about 500 people enrolled in the ROI group, but we normally get about 40 people or 50 people live, and then usually 100 or more will watch it afterwards. So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen. My only job today really is moving the slides along, and don't start yet, Brad. And just before Brad takes over, I also prepared a slide deck for today called 70 Fearless Future Predictions and How to Take Advantage of them from a real estate point of view. But we're not going to get to that today. I'm not disappointed. I hope nobody else is, but hopefully I'll get to it maybe at a future ROI group meeting. So with that, Bradley, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Bruce. Hello, everyone. This is new to me. I'm not used to being on this end of the presentation. I've watched quite a few of these, so thanks, Bruce, for the opportunity. Bruce asked me to speak today about a few passion projects that I have on the go, and just to give everyone a bit of context, I'm going to talk a little bit about my background first, and then we're going to talk about writing and content marketing as it relates to real estate, and then a little unique tiny home project that I have on the go with some partners. So let's get it started. Next slide, please. So I use the term, the phrase, I'm not used to this type of spotlight deliberately. I spent 10 years working as an intelligence officer for CSIS, both domestically and abroad. So the limelight is not something that is very comfortable for me, but I'm starting to get used to it. Yeah, so I recently retired from CSIS to pursue these passion projects that we'll be talking about today. All my former colleagues like to say that I'm now unemployed. I like to say retired. It's an ongoing debate, so maybe you can chime in the chat and let me know whether you think it's retirement or unemployment. So yeah, next slide, please, Bruce. You're on mute if you're chatting. So about the time when I joined CSIS with another business partner of mine, I bought my first rental property in the thriving metropolis of Orleans. It was both the most exciting and scariest moment of my life, outside of probably the birth of my first daughter. Yeah, I mean, it was a very typical type of initial acquisition, stacked townhome, almost brand new. Bought it, got a long-term rental in there. We were off to the races, super exciting. And we were off, we started out with $100 a month in cash flow. So we were super excited. Very good, right, everyone? That slowly turned into, $80 a month, $60 a month, property taxes go up, and all that kind of stuff. But what the first real estate investment did give me was sort of the real estate bug, and that has just escalated since then.
Brad, Ken says those are my units.
Oh, the one to the left is mine.
Okay, sorry, Kenny. And something else, you got a comment already from Tim Reed in Calgary. He says, you escaped with your sanity intact. That's all that matters, Brad.
Thanks, Tim. So we, myself and my wife and another business partner of mine, we graduated from the Ottawa market. I was forced transferred to Montreal for a couple of years with work, so I figured I'd spend my spare time on real estate while I was there, and bought 4 condos in Griffintown. If anyone's familiar with Montreal, it's used to be an old industrial wasteland up until about a decade ago, and developers started moving in to gentrify the area. So it was a perfect opportunity to get in at the ground floor with a couple initial acquisitions. If anyone knows Montreal, Griffintown's a rock's throw from Bell Centre, and just a quick walk to St. Catherine and old Montreal. So it's a great location. It was a bit rough when we first moved in there. So what attracted me to new condo development was there was a multitude of factors, but the main one was low maintenance. I'm not a very handy person. You definitely don't want me swinging any hammers. So the new product appealed to me. We also got the HST rebates. So we asked the builder to give us full HST in the purchase price. So we were able to get a nice little bonus at the end in the form of HST rebates once we took possession. And because it was the trajectory of the market was on an upward swing, we'd buy a property and then a year later we'd take possession, we'd already have tons of built-in equity. So it was a really great model. However, we found that it wasn't really scalable. So, going from, buying 1 or 2 or 3 condos isn't too bad. But getting any more becomes a bit of a logistical challenge, and you're quite limited with condos and what you can do with the actual assets. So moving on to the next slide, we graduated from new condo development into what is called missing middle housing. And I could talk about this for hours. I'm very passionate about it. For anyone who's unfamiliar with the term, it just refers to those small multifamily units that are from 2 up until about 8 that still fit in that sort of single family home type envelope that have largely disappeared in North America since World War II. We've had a huge emphasis on condos, single family home rentals, and then a huge emphasis on mid-rise to high-rise apartment buildings, which has left this giant gap in what is called missing middle multifamily. And there's a great book by Daniel Parolic there. If anyone's interested in that, it gives really great insight into this, and it's a huge opportunity, I think, over the next decade or 2. And again, we could talk about this forever, but I'll move on for expediency sake. So 2 partners and myself formed a development company called Blair Capital, and we are developing missing middle multifamily in the Ottawa outside of the Ottawa market. So we're really focusing on tertiary and secondary markets. And we did that for a number of reasons. When we started a couple of years ago, the Ottawa market, it's not as hot as it is now, but it was starting to get quite heated. So acquiring property inside city limits was getting expensive. So we looked to the outer areas, and we really thought that smaller communities and rural communities really had a strong future. And this was even prior to COVID. COVID definitely accelerated that trend. Yes, Bruce?
I was just going to ask you to comment on the acceleration that you're seeing. I mean, you were ahead of the curve, I think, Brad. You and your partners at Blair Capital. Recently as well, you've co-invested with me in a small town called Belleville. And can you comment on what you're seeing out there in terms of those kind of trends towards smaller towns that are within an hour or two of larger centers?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look, I mean, I write about this stuff, I'm very passionate about it, but if you look at the data, both in Canada and the US, you'll see a massive uptick in smaller metros or secondary and tertiary markets because of COVID. But even before COVID, you started to see that trajectory move upward because of the growing interest in remote work, and affordability is becoming an issue in a lot of the major city urban centers. So you see incomes not keeping up with asset prices generally when it comes to real estate. So that's where our thesis was a couple of years ago, and who could have predicted the pandemic? But again, that has just put that demographic shift on rocket fuel, and it's great for smaller markets, Kingston, Belleville. If you go to the next slide, Bruce, you'll see that we're in Embrun, Russell, Rockland. And we're looking at a couple other markets as well. We started with duplexes in Embrun. That's the far left. I think the wording got a little messed up there, but the second one to the left is our fourplex in Russell, which we've had now for almost 2 years. You'll see the other construction to the right of that is a couple sixplexes that we're doing in Embrun. And then on the far right, we're currently we have 4 lots in Rockland that we're building an 8plex on each. And those ones are really special to me because, again, with the work from home model, and we were talking about this with Bruce even prior to COVID, each one of these units has a lock-off component. So each unit is 2-bedroom, and it has a self-contained second bedroom in it that has its own ingress and egress to the exterior or a stairwell. And what that does is it provides so many work from home opportunities. You can have a home office there. You can host a senior. You can have if you are a senior, you can have a personal support worker in there. Massage, hairdresser. There's so many opportunities for that. And we just overcame a major hurdle with the city. We weren't too convinced that they'd like that design because it does present some interesting architectural challenges, but last week they approved all the permits, so we're going to be breaking ground on our first 8plex in Rockland in the spring.
Yeah, for everybody on the call, I've been calling this augmented tenancy. I've been calling it the gigaplex concept, and Brad and I've been talking about it for a year, and getting it approved in Rockland. What an amazing achievement by you and your team, Brad.
Thank you. Yes, we're very excited. Okay, so and just the last little bit about my background, and Gus, this will be interest to you. Because I was doing so much traveling and away from my family with my previous work, I started doing a lot of consulting and marketing contracting with Silicon Valley startups and really focusing on the property technology sector, or what we call prop tech, just because that's where my interest was. I have a number of clients listed here. Hostfully is my longest running one. We were 4 people when I joined. Now we're up to 35. We're going for a Series A funding round in the spring. They're software as a service platform for short-term rental managers. Stessa, which when I joined was acquired by JLL. And actually, if anyone follows prop tech news, last week they were just acquired for a second time by Roofstock, which is a huge deal and a big win for us there and the founding team at Stessa. I'm an investor in Unisu, which is a thought leader in Europe. They are the thought leader of property technology in Europe. We Go Look, which was acquired by Crawford a couple of years ago, and I'm also a writer for Motley Fool. And I do some advisory stuff as well on the side on content marketing as it relates to property technology. So I'm really steeped in this whole moving the real estate industry from legacy systems to more disruptive technologies that are going to, increase efficiencies, ROI, safety, security, all that good stuff. And again, I could talk about that forever, but that's not the point of this chat. The point of this chat is the next slide, which is briefcase. About 2 years ago, I started on this passion project to start up a newsletter for real estate entrepreneurs. And the focus was really to, there weren't that many good content pieces out there for real estate followers. There's lots of news sites and a lot of analysis and white papers and data reports, but nothing that was really as accessible as I would like. So I essentially wrote this newsletter for myself, but it's been growing like gangbusters since I started it, and it's been so much fun. Next slide, please. So we are a weekly newsletter. It's free. Please go sign up, briefcase.email, send it to your friends. I'd appreciate all that. There's no cost or anything. It's all free. And I don't know, Bruce, if you send out slides, there's some links to previous issues, but if you sign up, you'll get our previous issues as well if you choose. And we do a deep dive on a particular topic every week that is top of mind in the news. So for instance, on the far right, you'll see, this is our most popular one, actually, Wall Street Bets. It was a riff on Wall Street Bets and how the GameStop fiasco affects retail landlords and how it relates to real estate. And there's a strong real estate component of that whole issue that's still ongoing because retail is the landlord of people like GameStop. So we did a deep dive on that. When Bezos stepped down as CEO, we did a deep dive on his impact on real estate and Amazon's ongoing impact on real estate and what it means for us as investors. On the far left, this is a more recent one. The Biden administration is implementing some immigration reform. So we did an in-depth analysis on historical data of immigration's impact on the housing market and real estate. Which people tend to gravitate. They really like that one. We got a lot of good feedback. Next slide, please. And just a couple others. And just quickly on newsletters generally, it was surprising to me on how underutilized newsletters are as a marketing channel. As soon as the internet popped up, it was email. Email is the oldest form of communication via the internet, yet as marketers and as businesses, we are so terrible at marketing via newsletters. And just recently, in the past couple of years, we've started to see a huge interest in email newsletters. You have Substack, if anyone's not aware of them. They're like the Netflix for newsletters, but they're valued at several billions of dollars. There's the two biggest ones in our sector that are more business finance are Morning Brew and The Hustle. They're daily analysis newsletters that have millions of viewers. And Morning Brew was just acquired by Business Insider for 80 million. The Hustle was just acquired by HubSpot for probably something close to that. Yes, Bruce.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wondered how you came up with the name Briefcase. I like it, by the way, what's in my briefcase. And number two, I just want to reinforce what you said. A lot of people on the call here may not think email is effective, but I've said this before, I think, to the ROI group that if I was, if I didn't have enough to do either in my real estate practice as a realtor, or if I didn't have enough to do as a coach, I would literally sit down and write one-on-one emails to about the 16,000 people I have in my email address book and say, hey, it's Bruce here. I'm doing some new stuff. If you're interested, here's a link to something. And by the way, I'm still available as a coach or as a real estate realtor. So I do think that because email is kind of old now, that people are discounting it. But I'm agreeing with you, Brett. But the question I had is, how did you come up with the name?
Yeah, so exactly what you said. Like, I wanted something that people in my position could look forward to every week, that sort of arms them with the most important information of the week and why it matters, and really going beyond just reporting to sort of the so what. And you'll see in some of in the bottom section of the newsletter, there's a so what that sort of ties everything together. So I wanted it to be brief as well, and I toyed with the idea of doing a daily newsletter. And Bruce, this. I started out with a daily newsletter, and it was just not as productive and sustainable as I thought. So the whole brief case thing turned into less of a brief and a bit more of a longer analysis, but mainly the name was around, having everything you need to end the week. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just a little bit more. We tie in a lot of imagery and social media posts. And as you can see, I love to use emojis just to keep the interest and making it scannable. And on the far right, you'll see one of our most popular section of the newsletter is our TLDR section, the too long didn't read. Like probably a lot of you, I read dozens and dozens of articles a day related to real estate news. So what I do every day is I pull, the top 1 or 2 that I think is the most impactful and meaningful for real estate entrepreneurs, and I'll populate this section with those news stories. And that's more brief and snappy and to the point, but it's our most popular section. Next slide, please.
Just before we go to the next slide, yeah, Dale has a question for you. How much time do you allocate to putting together each newsletter? And I think, who is it now? Was that Jasmine? Or no, Jason, excuse me. Jason says he subscribes to Morning Brew. Great concept. And he says, I will definitely be subscribing to Briefcase. But Dale's question, how much time do you, I mean, these are wonderful emails. I get them once a week. I do read them. You know that, Brad, because I comment back to you on it. So how much time do you spend on it?
Yeah, so it's a daily effort. I probably spend an hour or 2 a day on it, but to be honest, Dale, and thanks for the question, I'm already writing about this stuff. I'm already reading about it. I write Stess's newsletter, which goes out to almost 100,000 investors now.
Wow.
So I'm really used to digesting and analyzing and this type of information. So one of the reasons I started it was because I'm already doing it. I might as well do my own thing as well. So it really doesn't take that long. And because I really this isn't a business, I'm not making any money off this. This is really a passion project. So this is one of my, aside from picking my kids up from the bus after school, this is the most exciting part of my day. Okay, I think, well, that's Briefcase in a nutshell. And so I should mention, I do have a writer that I work with on this, who does sort of the initial drafting of a lot of this, and then I come in and do my thing. And we also have a research assistant that helps as well. So, but this is entirely self-funded. We don't have investors or anything like that. We don't charge for anything. Yes, Bruce.
So how do people subscribe to this, Brad?
Yeah, so you just go to briefcase.email and there's a sign up right there. You just toss in your email.
All right, and we have one more question which I overlooked from Jason. What is the average cost per door to build these units? You know, the gigaplex units or whatever we call them today.
That's a very good question. I'm not entirely sure at the moment because this is the first one that we are going to be building, and we've done our darnest to project material costs, but anyone who's involved in the development industry at the moment knows that with labor and the cost of materials at the moment, that is extremely, extremely challenging. We are doing our best to stay around 180 a square foot, but things are very challenging right now from an income, from an expense projection and materials projection standpoint. So I'm happy to come back to you on that. Jason, send me an email and we can definitely stay in touch.
So Brad, is it okay if I type in your email address to the chat box?
Yeah, and I have it at the end of the slide too, but feel free. Yeah,
well, I'll share it. And just to comment on that, you know, if Brad is building at $180 a square foot, I guarantee you that I would be building at $220 and maybe $240. It's because, you know, I'm more of a retail buyer than he is. You know, I'm a busy guy, and you know, somebody quotes something, I go, oh, okay. Brad is a value investor and he's really good at what he does. So $180 a square foot is actually pretty decent, Jason, today, in my opinion. I do have some builders that I coach in Quebec who are doing, you know, numbers that are lower than that, but I don't have anybody in Ontario, for example, and certainly no one in the northern United States who's doing better than that.
Yeah, and I should mention too, a partner on that Rockland project, as well as our Emblem one, is the builder. So we are getting a bit of a discount than normal retail developers. And
one last question on this from Tim in Calgary in Alberta. What was your land cost per unit for the eightplex?
The land cost per unit on the eightplex was about 150 per lot, empty lots, that were zoned correctly.
But does that mean $150,000 for each unit per door?
No, the land cost. Sorry,
Yeah, but
there's a question about
what Tim is asking, and he's asking the right question, is most developers look at what is my raw land cost per door. So if I'm hearing you right, it was like 150,000 divided by 8.
Correct.
So Tim, $150,000 divided by 8 is less than $20,000 a door. That is a heck of a price in today, in this world today. So you did very well.
And that's why, and again, it goes back to the secondary and tertiary market bet, and that's why we're focusing on those markets, because when you look at acquisition costs and then compare comparable rents, when you look at Ottawa versus the tertiary markets, yes, rents in the tertiary markets are going to be a little bit lower, but not that much. And especially if you're building really good quality and you're really good at finding tenants across multiple platforms like we are, it's definitely been a really good bet for us. All right, on to other exciting things. So passion project number 2. This is Hammond Hill. Hammond Hill is an eco experience and wilderness retreat that we are building in Hammond, just south of Rockland. It's going to initially feature 10 small cottages and 50 acres of mature woodlands. We are really pushing the environmental sustainability of this project, and I'll get into that in a moment. These units are going to be built completely off the grid, and they're going to be available for nightly rentals. And we're going to have a whole bunch of other stuff at the Hammond Hill grounds, like trail networks, outdoor education centers, winter and summer activities, barbecue areas, picnics. There's going to be there's the lake there, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes around that. And how we got here is Hammond Hill is actually a project between myself, Len Gendron, who's the owner of the Hammond Golf and Country Club and the restaurant there, as well as Aaron Markle, who's the owner of the Broken Stick Brewery, which is also located at the golf course. So it's all one lot, and the 50 acres that we're building on is it's separate from the golf course, but technically it's all still the same lot that's zoned tourism commercial. So this is really a team effort. This is not just me by any means, but we started discussing, Aaron, Len, and myself about a year ago about what could we do with this 50 acres that was just sitting there paying property tax. And the ideas went around, a bunch of different ideas, some crazier than others, and we settled on this eco experience, particularly because the land at the golf course is doing some really amazing things with soil regeneration of the actual golf course soil itself. 44 years of pesticides and chemicals on the golf course has really done a number on it. So that's a story for another time, but there's some really interesting environmental sustainability things going on at the golf course, and we really wanted to carry that on to the short-term rental and experience that we're building at Hammond Hill. Next slide, please. So the top right, you can see we actually have a sales center that's almost ready to launch. We have 3 models in there that we've already built, 80 square feet, 160 square feet, and 240 square feet. You can see some of the layouts there and some of the graphic renderings. We have building permits ready. We're in discussions with the city, which are challenging, but we're getting there because of the environmental component of this. Everyone's been a cheerleader for this project from day one, from the city to the province. We've had a couple chats with our MP as well. Everyone wants this to happen, so it's just been a pleasure working on this with the team that we have and the reception we've been getting. So like I said, we're building 10 of these. We have 3 of them that are already in the sales center that's going to be opening up, and we'll talk about that later, opening up to the public, so you can come introduce yourself to me, you can come tour the cottages, have a beer at the Broken Stick Brewery, have a lunch or something like that, but we'll get into that later.
Brad, we have a question for you.
Yep.
What kind of zoning is required to have 10 bunkies or 10 cottages on one mature woodlot?
Yes, so good question. So the entire lot is zoned tourism commercial, so that allows pretty much anything you want to do from a business perspective except long-term residential. So you need commercial tourism, because that's when you get into the category of hotels, campsites, and short-term rentals, and that's the zoning you need for this type of activity. All right. Oh, back one, Bruce, quickly. Oh,
Are we on the right
forward,
one?
forward one, sorry. Yeah, you were on the right one, my bad. So yeah, I mean, you can see on the top right there, the 50 acres just outlined on the green. You can see the golf course to the left of it. So that's where we're putting our initial 10 cottages. Around those points, we've had to change them around a little bit because of the unevaluated wetlands and all that kind of stuff, but just it's all part of the learning process. Like I mentioned before, the sales center is almost complete, so you can come walk through all these cottages. They have these cottages are composed, like, we have water recollection on the roofs of the cottages for hand washing and shower. We're going to be bringing in potable water. We have compostable toilets. There's going to be small kitchens in each of them, and they're all going to be powered by one central solar array that's going to be, on the picture on the top right, you can see a little green bubble just to the left of the red dots. That's an opening, that's a sand pit that's going to be, it's going to be our new lake for Hammond Hill, but we're going to have the solar array there for power. These things are, because they're designed off-grid, they don't require that much power. We're going to have one plug and a couple lights, so it's the energy requirements quite minimal, and that's not what this is about. This is about getting back to nature, and we'll have nice deck areas with campfires outside and barbecues and that kind of stuff. It's encouraging people to spend more time outdoors with the benefits of the cozy tiny home.
Brad, a couple more questions have come in, I think, from Alex and Jason. And I think you already answered it, but I'll ask again. Will the cottages have running water? Will they have a septic system? How are you handling that?
Yeah, good, good question. So yeah, low flow running water for the sink and the shower from the water recollection that we're doing. And then we're gonna have gray water pits for that. We don't need a septic system. We have compostable toilets. So we will have to our maintenance crew will be emptying those on a regular basis.
So I have to tell you guys that Brad and Aaron and Len have inspired me as well. I have a lot that's about 90% floodplain. Can't really build much on it. So we're under construction right now with a bunkie. I think you know that, right, Brad? And our bunkie is gonna. We took the inspiration from Brad and Aaron and Len. And so we're going to have a really nice bunkie on it. It's going to have, bedroom. It's going to have a little kitchen. It's going to have, living area, dining area, nice deck outside. It's got a beautiful pond already on the property. And these are being rented out by people like cabinscape.com and others for, $165 a night. Summer, and then a little bit less in the wintertime. They go, right through the winter, guys. They're insulated, and this will have a propane stove in it. And believe it or not, this lot, which has no income, once I finish the bunkie, will probably have about $25,000 or $30,000 in revenue. And in terms of zoning, you can build a small bunkie, on pretty much any property. Can you build 10 of them? Not without the commercial tourism zoning that Brad and Len and Aaron already have, but on a piece of property that's 90% floodplain, I can certainly get away with one and maybe even two.
Love it. All right, and just quickly, I won't get into much of it, but this was a big bet on domestic travel as well. Again, planning this out pre-COVID with the significant decrease in, I work for, consult for Hostfully, and we have tens of thousands of people on our platform. We saw 500% year-over-year decrease in cancellations starting in April. But then in June, we started to see something interesting with domestic travel shoot up about 40% just in June, and that increased from there. And urban travel, even domestic urban travel, decreased 50%. So this was a big bet on domestic travel. Next slide, please. And I know I'm running up against time, but I'm going to run through a couple key points here before Bruce, I think you wanted to mention something after, but I'll just end with these key points.
I'm good. I've already mentioned what I was going to mention, and I think you're doing a great job, and I think people are really enjoying it, so I don't want to take any of your time other than chipping in with a comment or two.
Yeah, no worries. Jump in anytime. So the big couple key points here in no particular order. I also have a military background, so the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, was pounded into my brain But even with this project, it took us a while to get to this stage. We had kicked around a bunch of different ideas, had chats with Bruce, and Bruce is being modest. He had a big role in pushing us in this direction very early on. So that was a big lesson for me. It's that, we were talking about rezoning to residential and doing development and, hundreds of thousands of dollars in services and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, no, let's go back to the drawing board. What can we currently do? And how can we piggyback on what Len is doing at the golf course with all the environmental activities that he's doing? So that was a big lesson for me. On revenue, I was blown away by this. And this is my wheelhouse, short-term rentals as well. In reviewing all the data and analysis on ADRs, average daily rates, and occupancy. Occupancy is quite high for the tiny home segment of the short-term rental industry. On average, you're probably looking about 50 to 60%, but I was seeing some in the region of 80 to 90%. And average daily rates just blew me away. I was thinking, okay, we could probably get $100 a day for these. No. Yeah, at the very least 150. Some people are getting 250 and they're filling up 80% of the year. And what Bruce said wasn't far off, but he's underestimating it. $30,000 a year in gross revenue from one unit isn't a stretch. So that was pretty interesting for me as well. The solar field has been a big learning curve for me. So initially we were going to do solar on each cottage. But because we're literally nestling these in the landscape as opposed to clearing trees and stuff like that, it really wasn't going to work. We didn't have enough solar coverage. So it was much more energy efficient and cost efficient, because we do want to do more than 10 to do a solar field, because then we can just add solar components to it. Bootstrap capital, this is a big Bruce influence as well. Instead of raising a whole lot of investor money for this project, really focusing on bootstrap capital. So I mentioned the sales center. We're going to be pre-selling stay packages at a steep discount for the next several months until we open. So that will fund a lot of the development that we are going to be doing on the hill. Very early on, also, we got politicians involved. So we've had a meeting with our MPP. We had a couple meetings with our MP. I've had so many meetings with the counties and the city and the province that my day is filled up by that. So, but it's really helped push this along, and just spreading the good message about what we're trying to achieve. And yes, there's been tons of roadblocks, and there's going to be more. I know it. But getting everyone on side and being, like I said before, your cheerleader has been a huge win for us. And like I said, the municipal reaction, like I have people from the municipality reaching out to me when I submit a document or an application, proactively saying, oh, have you considered this? You should do this, you should do that. Like as a real estate developer, I was just like floored when that started happening, because that never happens. Usually it's the other way around. You got to chase them. So that's been really cool to see. Kind of a weird one for me. It's we're actually filming a TV show about all this. So we had 2 directors and a producer who work for CBC who are going to be freelancing on this down for the last couple of weeks, and they filmed a promo of a show titled Growing the Green, and it's about the soil regeneration that Len's doing on the golf course, as well as the repurposing golf course lands to change the business model of golf courses generally, and how to sort of resuscitate that industry, because we all know that golf course membership's on the decline. So how do we create this destination that's ecologically sustainable and people want to come to? And that's what Hammond Hill is all about, and the golf course.
And what I'd like everybody to do is put in the chat box the word superstar. I'm expecting Brad. I mean, he's a good-looking young man. I expect Brad to be the next HGTV superstar. So just put in superstar in the chat box to let Brad know that you're in support of it. Brad, we have a question from Brad. We already got a superstar. We got a question from Brian Kernick out in Alberta. We got quite a few people from out west today. And the question he asked is, how wide are these cottages? And maybe they're ideally set up for modular construction.
Absolutely, and I can take zero credit for this. This is all Aaron the builder. These are being built in components of 10 by 8. So the 80 square foot module is 10 by 8. 160 square foot module is the exact same, just another module added on. So, and the same thing with the 240. So it's all it's all very modular in nature. So we're very flexible with, you know, where we put these, how we construct them, and how big they are. Because the 80 square foot is a bit challenging with permits, where that one might be up in the air. But anyway, yeah, they're modular in nature, and they're built, they're sized to significantly reduce cutoffs, you know, and waste, which is a huge component of what we're trying to do with how we build these things. We're also talking, we're gonna try and use, we are gonna use battery powered tools as much as possible to stay off the grid, even with the construction.
Brad, one other thing too, I think you've talked to me, and Aaron has talked to me as well, that you might actually start to sell the bunkies too. If somebody out in Alberta or somebody in Ontario wanted to buy one, and you know, they could come and knock down kits, you could pop them up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's hard to not think about that, Bruce, to be honest, because we've already had people approach us to join a waiting list to purchase them. So that's definitely a consideration. So if that's something that's interests you, just reach out to me. My email's at the end. I think Bruce has already shared it. So
I already shared it on the chat box, so you can find it there. And you were also going to bribe everybody today with 50 Hammond Hill dollars, I think.
Yeah, so that's on the last slide, and we could jump right to that, Bruce.
Well, I think it's just a fantastic opportunity, you know, for folks, and I'd like to just jump to the last slide. Here we are. I'll blow it up a little bit bigger. Give me a second here. And you know, I love the idea of having local currencies. Brad knows this. I think Ottawa should have something called the O-Town dollar. You know, there are lots. Calgary has a Calgary dollar. I don't know if you know that, Brian Koenig, but it does. And so there's going to be Hammond Hill currency, and everybody, if you want to reach out to Brad, you've got his email address. You get 50 Hammond Hill dollars redeemable at Hammond Hill if you would like to stay, you know, with your family or your friends at one of these bunkies. Anyway, I cut you off there, Brad.
No, that's great. Yeah, we have a grand opening on the 27th of March. It's a Saturday from 9 till noon. Obviously, we'll be having COVID restrictions in place, but feel free to swing by, introduce yourself to me, grab a beer or pizza, and check out the cottages.
Did you mention that there's a brew pub out at Hammond Hill as well?
Yeah, so there's Broken Stick Brewery. So it's located at Hammond Hill Golf Course. So it's 600 Du Golf Road in Hammond. Also co-located with the golf course is the Broken Stick Brewery, which is owned by Aaron and another partner. So there's a lot going on there with the restaurant and the brewery and the golf, and now you can actually stay on site as well.
And so one last question you got from Jason was, is it possible still to golf? I mean, is the golf going to continue?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. The golf will continue, and that's something that Len has really been focusing on, the owner, on how to make that more, increase the longevity of the golf course with these soil regeneration tactics. So yeah, absolutely encourage people to come down, golf, eat, stay, email me anytime, and come down and check out the new model homes at the sales center.
So, because Len's on the call too, we should ask Len, can the $50 of Hammond Hill currency be redeemed at the golf course? You can type it in the chat box, Len, just in case, because my youngest son and my one of my son-in-laws, they're mad about golf, so they might take the $50 and go spend it on beer and golf.
Yeah, well, Len says yes, so there you go. Okay. Fire me an email, anyone, anytime, and we'll make it happen.
Okay, well, I better apply for my $50, and I'll give it to my youngest son. All right, listen, I've really enjoyed this, and there is a business model there for people like me, poor professors like me, and other people on the call. I know, I think Paul in Calgary, and maybe Tim and Brian also in Alberta. You know, there's a lot of beautiful land that you can pick up in Alberta, in British Columbia, in Montana, you know, where I've done quite a bit of work, and you can pick these lots up, sometimes very inexpensively, as I did with this lot that is 90% floodplain. And if you add one or maybe even two bunkies to it, and you rent it out like Cabinscape has done and like Hammond Hill will do, you know, you can add, like I said, maybe $30,000 per building to your income. And when you're a poor professor like me, you know, $30,000 of additional income, and maybe 60 if I can get 2 of them on there without getting the locals too upset with me. I definitely can't do 10, but I could do 2. You know, it could add $50,000 or $60,000 to my retirement income. You know, you've all heard this one, right? I figure I can retire about 5 years after I die. You know, that's kind of me. But all kidding aside, you know, there is a real business here that you could pick up lots. You can't spend, you know, $500,000 a lot and put a bunkie on it. That isn't a sensible model. But, you know, I bought that lot with, you know, the floodplain on it, 90%, for $40,000 and, you know, put a bunkie on it, and you've got, you know, I don't know, 20-25% cap rate, which is pretty good, a little bit better than the bank is paying me in interest on my high savings account, which is I think 0.9% these days. So I think 20% or 25% beats 0.9% last time I checked my math. And so if Brad and Aaron and Len start producing these things, Brian, you know, as knockdown kits, you could ship them everywhere. You could ship them into the States, and, you know, the Canadian dollar being worth about what a peso is worth, it gives you a great advantage to, you know, and maybe also sell them into the US, Brad.
That's the goal.
All right.
One step at a time, though.
So before we break off and we turn our attention to my dear friend Gus and his amazing futurity ideas and concepts, are there any last questions for Brad before we let him go? I'm giving, you know, I'm counting down from 5, 4, anything else, 3, 2, 1. You did a great job, Brad. I'm really proud of you. Wonderful, wonderful job. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing for a minute if I can find the stop sharing button, and I'm going to then boot up Gus's slide deck, and we're going to start. It's a very different path. It's not typical of what we do at the you know, at the ROI group, but you know, when I saw what Gus was doing last year, I just thought it was really, really important to at least bring it to everybody's attention. And again, Brad, great job. All right, so let me start sharing. You've heard what I had to say a little bit about Gus when we started. I've been coaching Gus. He's Montreal based. He is in the Canadian Armed Forces. He is a major in the Canadian Armed Forces. I think he did 2 tours in Afghanistan. And I just want to speak for a moment about the Canadian Armed Forces and the people, you know, my uncle, Freddie, he was a medical doctor. He served in the Pacific Theater in World War II. And, you know, many of our soldiers in Canada, the United States, and our allies, our close allies, have, you know, died to preserve Canada's freedoms. And, you know, whether it's people like Brad who served at CSIS, or it's people like Major Gus who have put their lives on the line to preserve our freedoms, I am personally very grateful, and I'm sure everybody else will share that sentiment. You know, when you travel the world, as I have done, I've been fortunate in some ways to work in many different countries. You realize how nice Canadians are. You know, we're not the most exciting people. I'll admit that in the world. And I think most of you, I hope, know what our national slogan is. But yesterday I was talking to a person I coach, again, in the West, and I asked him what our national slogan was, and he didn't know it. And I said, well, it's peace, order, and good government. And then I tested him. He's a Canadian. Then I tested him, and I said, well, do you know whose national slogan this is? And he said, so I said, pursuit of happiness. And right away he knew it was the American slogan. So one of the things I would like to propose once the pandemic is past us is that Canada do what the United States has done with Black Lives Matter and paint a large mural in front of Parliament Hill saying peace, order, and good government, something big enough you could see it from outer space. And why is that? Because you cannot create any value, I don't care what country you live in, whether it's Russia or China, the United States, Mongolia, Canada, the United Kingdom, without peace, order, and good government. And I will admit to you, when I was a younger person, when I was in my 20s, I thought the American slogan was awesome, right? Pursuit of happiness. You know, who wouldn't like that, right? But then as I got older, I realized that that may not be the best slogan for a national slogan. And peace, order, and good government it is a bit boring, but it really is a meaningful slogan. So that's enough for me. Gus, over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Perfect.
All right, next slide, please. Next one too. All right, intro. Hi guys.
Sorry, my fault.
Guillaume Noiseux-Lauze. Thank you for the intro, Bruce. It's quite an honor to be here today and speak with you, all of you. Can you see me in the little screen at the bottom?
Beautifully.
Okay. So I'm a father, husband, soldier, an engineer, civil and structural engineer. I'm an investor, lifelong learner, and innovation enthusiast. So Bruce called me a futurist. So yeah, I'll take it. Yeah. So I've been a small-time real estate investor since 2011, and you know, I'm an accredited investor since last year. Everything I'm about to share with you folks is not financial advice at all. It's only my opinion, my personal story. And I'll be honest, it's a bit more about wealth creation than wealth preservation. So depending on where you are in your life, you know, it might be for you, or it might not be for you. It might not be too pertinent. And Bruce, if my English, you know, you feel that, don't hesitate to stop me. I'll do my best to try to explain my points. All right. So I'll next slide, please. So first lessons I learned. You're gonna see throughout the presentation. It's mostly pictures. Because I hate presentation with too much text. So don't get caught sleeping at the wheel. All right. The point here is I have realized throughout the years, and then I'm going to explain a little story, personal story, why being a self-aware consumer is so important. You know, like follow your own money. Like, you know, like. That's quite important. So if I step back a little, and just the title of the presentation today is "Paying Attention to Get Paid," right? So that's really it. Paying attention. You know, as a side note, and I'm pretty sure all of us come across $1 million opportunity every week. We just don't see it, right? So next slide. I'm going to explain how I came to this conclusion in my life. You know, in 1986, my dad, I was young at that time, but bought a Mac, first Mac for about $2,500. At that time, that was a lot of money. It's still not a lot of money, but I mean, for him, a lot of money. When I joined the Canadian Armed Forces, 17 years, a while back, you know, I put probably a third of all my year of discretionary money in buying the first generation of Apple iPod, right? Like, so that's a big, it's like buying a toy that's like, you know, like it's a big toy to buy. I mean, it's probably a third of all your year discretionary money. So the idea there is just to portray the thing. Like, so both of my dad and I, like, why would we spend that much money on stuff on those two items? Because we generally thought it was revolutionary. It was awesome. It was great. In 2003, if you look at the MP3 player, the next best thing, you know, it had you could put like 10 songs on it. I could put my whole collection of music on this. So I thought it was revolutionary. That's why I spent that much money. Next slide, please. So the idea is, you know, if I was just a bit more aware, and this is just for a fun exercise to show you, like when you're prepared to make such a commitment in buying something that you are truly amazed with, how about you think like it might be a worthwhile idea to dig into the company, you know, if you're to spend that much money. If I would have spent like, okay, I love that iPod that much, but I'm gonna spend the same amount in the Apple stock, you know, I would have had 200K today for like, so yeah, if you do the math, if you invest 550, if you had invested $550 in Apple stocks in 2003, when I bought my, you know, I'm not that old, it'd be 200K today. So
Gus,
yeah.
I just wanted to point out to everybody that Gus's first language is French, and I'd ask everybody to listen very carefully because this is a person who really knows what he is talking about. In the early 1980s, I was like your dad, Gus. I went down and I experimented. This was 1983. I experimented with two different personal computers. One was the IBM PC, and the other was the Apple Macintosh. And in about 5 minutes, I figured out how to use the mouse on the Mac, how to create a letter, how to print it out, and how to do the things that I needed to do. When I went over to the IBM store, after an hour of explaining all the different commands you had to do before you could even log in, I walked out of that store, walked back to the Apple store, and I bought 18 Macintosh computers right there. They didn't have 18, but I said I want them because I gave every single person at Terrace Investments Limited one of these Macs. And we didn't know it then, but we also were able to network them. We didn't call it that. So we could share files, we could print at every desk. And that was one of the reasons why the company that I owned back then, Terrace Investments Limited, which is the first parent company of the Ottawa Senators National Hockey League team, that's one of the reasons why we grew from 350,000 in sales when I took over the company in 1983 to 120 million 9 years later. But what I didn't know, Gus, and what you've just clued me in today, is I should have also invested in Apple stock.
Exactly, and another example I can give you is, can't remember if it's Mark Cuban or the other Shark Tank guy, the Mr. Wonderful, like was watching an interview, and basically at the beginning of the pandemic, he owns business, right? So he was looking at like, where do I spend my money, and what product
What a simple concept. If you spend your money, buy the friggin' stock.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it's for sure, but okay. So lesson number 2, right? That's a classic one. Never let a good crisis go to waste. I love that one. And basically, you know, live through, like, I was not in the market, in the stock or real estate market for the stock, the 1999 bubble or crash. But I was definitely working and had some cash on, you know, in the 2008, right? So for me, the 2008 crisis was the first wasted crisis. When I say wait, it's not that wasted because I invested a few years later in real estate, right? So, but it was a first wasted crisis, and that's where I've learned that psychology is so important in investing. All right, so. And then if you just next slide.
Just before we get off this slide, I want to say to you that I really buy this, but I applied in a real estate form just because I didn't and don't know enough about stock market investing. So we have had an incredible, unbelievable, maybe once in 100 year, hopefully just once in 100 year crisis. And one of the things that I have been doing and Brad Cartier has been doing, and others who are on this call have been doing, is we've been investing, as Brad said, in small towns, Rockland, Belleville, you name it, Prescott, Ontario, and I have clients in the United States doing the same thing. We're buying property on the main streets of these cities that are so cheap that they're almost giving the property away. We're renovating them, populating them with great tenants, and they're going up in value by a factor of 10 or a factor of 2 or a factor of 50%, whatever the number is. It's amazing. And what Gus has done is he's taken this exact same philosophy and applied it in a field he knows really well.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm gonna dive into how I put those lessons to practice a bit later in the presentation. Okay, but also during the 2009 crisis, I've realized that, you know, following a crash, there's a bull market. And guess what? Everybody's a genius in a bull market. So you can apply that statement for the success I had last year, and I would agree with you, you know. Everybody's a genius in a bull market. But, you know, what I've learned is, yeah, simple as that. So next one, lesson number 3. I like that slide. So in 2000, when I got back from Afghanistan in 2011, I got really deep into learning about how money worked, like, you know, like economics, right? How money is created, you know, what is inflate, like all of this. I got really deep into that, and that's you know, got interested in the concept of inflation edge, and I got piqued my interest. You know, the gold bug piqued my interest in 2011. You know, maybe some of you have you know, have been, and I crossed Bitcoin 2011, and I was fascinated by the concept, like, and actually tried to buy some. In 2011, they were about $3. So my plan was to play around with it, like, so Bitcoin is a currency, right? So back then, like, I was just fascinated by the possibility of having decentralized, you know, a currency not controlled by anyone, and having an immutable ledger that basically records every single transaction since the history of time, you know, or since the history of the currency. But I tried, and it was complicated, you know. So I you know, I didn't buy it. In the end, I didn't buy any Bitcoins. And the reason, you know, so those 300 Bitcoins, so they do the math, they would be worth like crazy money, like millions and millions, right? And it would have costed me $1,000. But I'm really happy I didn't buy them. And I'm going to explain to you why. If I had bought them, there is no way I would have kept them, those Bitcoin, until today. Right? Because let's say you invest $1,000 and 5 years later it's worth $100,000. You get rid of this thing, right? You need to cut. You know, you need to take like I would have sold it out, everything, after making a few $1,000 profit, and today I would be hating myself. So where I want to go with this is simple. Do your own research. Like, and I think Bruce, you give the same advice for your for the people that you coach, about, like, you're not going to hand them, like, buy this property, it's a good deal, right? I think your approach is you need to find, you know, you need to find your own property. Like, you need to be able to see the opportunity. You need to do your own research.
So that is exactly what I think is crucial here. It's called the art, en anglais, it's called the art of seeing. We all look, but very few of us see. You know, when I bought that building in Belleville, and I gave an ROI group presentation on it back in November of 2020, when I bought that building, if you had walked in there, people had walked in there with me and saw how the condition of the building, most people, in fact, all the people that had been for sale for over a year, run out of the building, you know, screaming, no, this is not for me. But we bought that building for $280,500. It's 12,000 square feet, 3 stories on the main drag in a city that is really coming alive. It's about $24 a square foot. When it's completed, it'd be worth over $3 million. And so we all look, but we don't see. And I have to tell you, Gus, I look at the stock market, but I don't see it the way you do. I look at the real estate market, and I see it the way I think I should, and the way I'm trying to teach people I coach to really see. But what you're doing today, and what I'm asking people to consider, is how to use the lessons that Gus is teaching to really see what is in front of you. And I'm learning today as we speak, because I have very strong opinions about where the economy is going and where the future opportunities are. And I would like to take advantage of the these lessons, and I plan to, by the way.
Yeah. So the point I was trying to make with the story too is like, I would have sold those Bitcoin, right? Why I would have sold a Bitcoin a few years, you know, like when my 1,000 investment would have turned to, let's say, 20,000. To be realistic, I would have sold that at that time. Okay, for sure. Why? Because my level of conviction would not have been as high, because I would not, like, I would have just, you know, it's a curiosity, or someone of, you know, I would have bought it. And then, so building your conviction is uber important. If you don't know why you're buying a company, how do you expect to know when to sell it? There's no way. So for most people, stock market is simple. Like buy ETF or you know, exchange traded funds, and forget about it. So that's the advice I would give to most people, even though I cannot give financial advice. But if you're to do it, like, don't take the advice of someone else. Like, just do it yourself, and build your conviction. And you're gonna see how those lessons come into practice a bit later. Like I said, this is just kind of building the history behind. All right, next slide, please. All right, so after like, so forward 2017, right? Bitcoin is now $20,000, right? So it's 6 years later, when my interest was peak, I realized that I left probably 40 million on the table, 30 million or something like that, right? If I would just like, so I said, okay, Gus, next time you're really like excited about something, like, you know, like, trust yourself, do it intelligibly, but like, you know what I mean? Like, act on it, do something, right? So, you know, came across this guy, Tony Seba, a presentation like 2017, roughly. He was talking about disruptive tech, right? So this is New York City in 1900, and there's one car there, Fifth Avenue, if you know, right? Good piece of real estate. Bruce is thinking about the Fifth Avenue real estate. I'm thinking about the car. So there's one car. You wanna change slide, please? 13 years later, wow. Where's the horse? There's one horse on this picture. 13 years. Okay, so that's crazy. So next slide, please. So one thing to think about, and when I explain it to you, there's different example. I just picked up like those. So the horse and the car is one example. This is like the iPhone, right? So when you have like something that changes quite a bit, like, it's a S curve. Usually the disruptive tech adoption curve is a S curve. So it's like exponential curve followed by not a logistic function. I don't know who wrote that. It's a logarithmic function. And you see, like, you know, the innovators at the beginning, the early adopters. But the thing is, humans are not set to think exponentially. Right? You need to know, like, our cognitive bias, we are linear thinkers. We are all like this, all right? Another example I can give you. And if you read, like, it's still out there. If you read in 2010 and 13, like, what Monthly Fool, sorry, Brad, I had the Monthly Fool would say about the iPhone, they say, yeah, they're gonna get their lunch eaten once the big boys, you know, get in the Nokia and the RIM and when the other, you know, when they get in the, you know, they have no chance. Apple has no chance, you know, they're you know, because anyways, so disruptive tech or big changes, they don't follow a linear curve. Okay, and another example is that a cellular phone. Okay, so AT&T did a research in the 90s about cell phone adoption, right? They were landline, and they had estimated by the year like 2010 there would be 1 million cellular phone user in the United States. You know, they were off by a factor of like 200x. And they had paid like the big, the McKinsey or the big accounting firm and all the, it cost them millions of dollars to do a big market study because, like disruptive technologies like cellular or internet, the adoption curve is not linear. So we're getting to where I can relate to what I've done in the stock market. So what I realized at some point in 2018, and I'm a big car guy, right? I've always been a big car guy. I was quite skeptical of this guy, called Elon Musk, trying to do electrical cars but I started looking at that, like electrical cars, 17, 18, did probably a year worth of research. And I came to the conclusion in 2018, that we were at the, like innovator, like 1% penetration basically in electrical car, but that in a decade or two, it would be 100%. It was a question of time. Like I didn't know if it was like, 5, but all the car would be electric at some point. And then I realized that, oh my God, like Tesla is not only a car company. So I started digging, and it's a big rabbit hole. If any of one of you on the call, like as research Tesla, it's a rabbit hole. Like once you dig into this company, like it's like 15 different startup in one company, right? So yeah, you can leave this slide, I think. No, okay, no, leave that slide. So I came to the conclusion that basically the future was electric, and I bet big. You can go back one slide, Bruce, and zoom out. And I bet big. Basically, I really don't recommend you do this, but I loaded up my credit line, and I bought Tesla stock, and when it crashed, because it crashed in 2019 at some like early in the year. So that's what I did. But so the lessons, I've learned, but I did probably a year worth of research before I did that, and my conviction was really high because if at that point it was it's still really, really heavily shorted, but no one on Wall Street. Everyone, it's crap, and when you see like experts saying this is crap, this is junk, and you're like, wow, there's like between my research and my conviction and what the market is saying, there's such a big gap. I need to do something. So that's why I loaded up the credit line and bought Tesla stock, right? All right. Can you zoom out, Bruce? Is it on my screen? But I see it all. I cannot see the whole slide because you zoomed out on. You zoomed in on the.
Can you see it now?
No.
It must be your screen. Can everybody else see it? Okay. Just put it in the chat box if you can see it. Okay. Here we go.
Okay, that's fine. It's just my. All right. So I have.
Yeah, no, everybody can see it fine, except for you.
For me. All right, fine. This is good. So I have a little question. On those slides, you probably recognize a few of those companies. Which of those companies is closest to Tesla? Relates the most to Tesla, right? Right in the chat box. What do you think?
I really don't know. I guess it would be Alphabet.
Yeah, and actually, Tesla is all of those companies. So they're in the car business-ish. They're making their own. They're designing their own AI chip, like NVIDIA. They are a software company. If I had to choose one, I think it would be. It'd be hard, but they're an AI company. So to me, I would use whoever said Google. I would agree with you. But they are AI company. They don't build cars, they build robots, right? But the robots are not safe to be left alone on their own design right now. But as I said earlier, we're not good at thinking exponentially, right?
That's right.
They're not safe to be left on their own design right now. But the question is it going to take 3 years or 5? But it's a question of time, right? It's just whatever. But the big thing too, they're an energy company. That's why the Chevron's there. You know, they are. And I realized that, again, from my Afghanistan days. When you go to Afghanistan and some developing countries, they skip the landline. They went straight to the cell phone, to the distributed, right? Because it's the infrastructure that costs a lot of money. So what's the equivalent in the energy sector? It's solar plus battery. So all the developing country, you know, they're going to skip the whole utility thing, right? They're going to just solar, battery, boom. So they are disrupting the energy production. And LG Chem, they're a big battery producer, you know, like Tesla. And you all know Toyota, so I don't need to think about that. So I'm 13 minutes left, but so yeah. So and there's more. There's way more than that. But I just wanted to say that the Wall Street was seeing Tesla as Toyota. That's how they were pricing it. Like, it's a mature industry, you know, like it's if you know anything about stock, like they have really low price to earning ratio because there's not a lot of growth expected. Anyways, the analysts we're seeing Tesla as a car company, but they're not a car company. All right, so next slide. So cool. Besides being lucky with Tesla, how did you apply those lessons you've learned? Well, so you know, you remember all those not all those, but 3 lessons I've learned. So basically, I applied them last March. So any guess of what I did last March? So I'm on slide 14, Bruce. So last March, Tesla dropped 60%. What do you think I did? Sell off? No, I bought more. And also what I bought, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that one. You know, Bruce gives kind of a contrarian advice when it comes to real estate to really push to get your rental property, pay them off fast. Like typically the advice is like, you know, the interest rate is deductible, and you want to lever as much as possible. So you know, that's the typical advice from real estate coach. But he says no, like, you know, you want to increase your LTV wedge. You know, you want to have well-capitalized property, which I find kind of surprising. But you know what I did in March is I was able to actually refinance my properties to do that. So in March, never waste a good crisis. Okay, right? So what I did, refinance my property, and they were good. They were well capitalized, so I was able to take, you know, good money. So that's why I find it so relevant to talk about stock investing to real estate investor, because for most stock, like let's say I'm a stock guy, right? I hate having too much cash on the sideline because they don't do shit, right? The real estate investor, the cool thing about these folks is their cash earns basically your mortgage rate of interest. They're latent cash, right? It's waiting to be deployed, but it's still earning interest because you know. So that's why real estate investor have actually a fucking edge in the stock market, in my humble opinion, because our focus is real estate. But when we see a crash or a correction, we have access to capital. If you follow Bruce's advice and you have well-capitalized property, if you're mega levered, you cannot take advantage of what I'm saying. So yeah, so in March last year, I put my own lessons to practice, and I refinanced my property, and I bought what? I bought stuff I understood, and company I loved and I understood. I bought Disney. Can you believe I made like 100% with Disney, the oldest company in the United States, almost? Like that's crazy. Like I bought Square, I bought Apple, Amazon, you know, the normal stuff, Google, some Bitcoin, but more on that in a few minutes.
But Gus, I have to tell you, if I had listened to your advice, I would have made a lot of money in the market. And I'll tell you a quick story. This is my iPhone. When I started my coaching practice 8 years ago, I asked my bank, the Bank of Nova Scotia, I said, I'm going to open up a coaching practice. I would like to be able to take credit cards if some of my clients would like to pay by credit card. They said, sure. You have to apply. It takes 3 to 4 months to be approved. You have to rent a machine, like you sit somewhere in your house, that costs you $35 a month. We're going to charge you 3%, and you can only do $1,500 a month in credit cards for the first year while we make sure that you're a bona fide vendor. And I said, well, I've been banking with the Bank of Nova Scotia for 35 years. You know me. Well, sorry, those are our rules. I thought, oh, that's not going to work very well. I'm not hoping to make more than $1,500 a month. So one of my students, Gus, talked to me about Square, one of the companies you bought last year. And this is eight years ago. And I said, I've never heard of Square. They said, well, you go to the App Store at Prof. Bruce and you download Square to your phone. So I did that. I hooked it up to my Bank of Nova Scotia account. That took me about 5 minutes to download it and hook it up to my account. And then I started processing credit cards 5 minutes later. Now, anytime a company gives you a product that you can use, as long as you're bona fide and you don't misuse it, in 5 to 10 minutes, when the friggin' bank that I've been dealing with for 35 years is going to take months and limit me that way, I should have listened to your lessons 8 years ago and loaded up on Square stock. And if I had done that, I wouldn't be on the call today. I'd be in Costa Rica smoking cigars and drinking rum. That's my story.
Yeah. And quickly, we're running out of time, and I have a really cool slide at the end that I want to show you. I'll skip. I'll skip that. So what next? So for me, I'm just going to share what I'm really excited about in the next 7-10 minutes. So blockchain. The picture I thought was cool, but so the blockchain tech is big to me. My humble opinion. It's like Internet 2.0.
It is.
And right now, the space looks a bit like the internet bubble of 1999, to be frank, especially in the NFT. I'm going to talk about that later. But it's a big idea, and I really don't have time to dig too much into this. But like with internet, we were able to exchange information between people with zero cost, almost, right? A server, they cost money, but we can say for the sake of the discussion that with the internet, we were able to move information at zero cost, right? With the blockchain, you'll be able to move value, assets, contract, art, IP, like intellectual property at zero cost. And you won't have to trust, and there's no third party. When you do a transaction, you always need a third party, right? To do the exchange for you. But anyways, I don't want to dig too deep. I just want to say, like, the title is pay attention to get paid. So what I'm saying is that invest in Bitcoin is pay attention to this space, to the blockchain space, not just Bitcoin, the blockchain space. Pay attention. And in the slide, there's a great, we're running out of time, but the reason I bought Bitcoin I bought in April was first that we had a vehicle in Canada that I could just, on Questrade, I could buy basically, it's a trust that buys Bitcoin and you can just buy the trust, right? Because I didn't want to have to go through the hassle of, and there's so much things that has happened. So right now, the head of the SEC was teaching an MIT course, which I'm following. It's online, it's free, on blockchain technology and Bitcoin. So it's like it's mainstream. Like it's past the like what is it like? No, like the head of the SEC is a Bitcoin guy. You know, it's over. All right, not too. I don't want to spend too much time on Bitcoin. But one of the thing that Bruce asked me is, what would you do if you had someone that was not too keen about Bitcoin, but wanted to do something safe with their money and earn more than 1% at the bank, or not even, it's not even 1%. So next slide, BlockFi. So this is really cool. And I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. The amount of money I'm putting money into this. Look it up, and basically what you do is you take US dollar, you send it to this company, you know, and my research tells has led me to believe that this company is the most reputable one that does something like that. You send your US dollar, you convert your US dollar into a stable coin. You're gonna need to research what a stable coin is, but in a nutshell, it's a crypto dollar that is backed 1-for-1 with the US dollar. And it's being accounted yes, blockchain is a future now. I agree, Peter, for sure. That's why I laugh when Bruce tells me I'm a futurist, because I'm like, it's not the future, it's now, it's today. But anyway, look this up. I'm not gonna spend too much time. This is great. You're gonna earn like 8.7% on your dollar. And they have nice article that explain how they do this. You know, they lend basically your crypto dollars, you know, they do over collateralized loan to big company like Citadel Clearinghouse that needs to have its overnight lending. They deal with just big institutions, but the retail folks can go there. So it's not in the slide, but you know, if you're interested in that space, look up, do some research on DeFi, decentralized finance. This is basically, yeah, this is the.
Gus, is it okay if I put your email address, your Hotmail account?
Yes, everything.
Okay, I'll do that.
So I'm speeding up a bit because there's a few little gems that I want to share with you guys. Oh, the last one is the NFTs. This is where I say it's a bit like 1999 with regards to non-fungible token. This is crazy. Anyone here like are like collectors, like baseball card collectors or whatever, you know? Yes. So like the non-fungible token is basically a way to make a crypto asset or anything like a picture or a song or something digital, unique, and not, you cannot copy it. Right? It's kind of, yeah, it's like minting, you know, like, you know, when a dollar is being made, they try really hard to not make them reproducible, right? Our physical dollars, right? So non-fungible token are the same idea, but for digital goods or IP. But this is gonna change the world, especially for the artists and the people that create stuff, because you can attach it on the blockchain, royalties that are forever. So whenever the digital good changes end, the original artist gets paid 5%. Because what happens if you're a painter, you sell your painting for let's say $5,000 to a gallery. 10 years later, it's being auctioned for 20 million. You get zero out of that auction down the road, right? But what the NFTs are doing, in this case, and the reason I put that is look at Top Shot, the NBA is doing it right now. So it's not like future, Bruce. It's the NBA is selling.
You're killing me, Gus. So everybody, non-fungible tokens, I'm an expert on it because Gus has been briefing me on it. What it really means, for example, for the NBA can take one of the most fabulous shots ever created, you know, ever done. They can create a digital video of that great shot, and they can create a limited number of authorized copies of it, and they can sell their highlights highlights to collectors. So maybe, yeah, I don't know if you guys are Raptors fans like I am. So if you're a Raptors fan, to me, the number one most important shot in Raptors history was the one Kawhi Leonard made to eliminate Philadelphia in Game 7. Now, the Raptors went on to win the championship, but to me, that was the key moment. It wasn't in the finals. It was earlier than that. And, you know, I wouldn't mind actually, Gus, owning that particular highlight. And maybe I own it. And it's, you know, I've got a little comment from Kawhi. Hey, Prof. Bruce, awesome that you bought this. And what would that be worth in a decade? You know, quite a bit. So I have been giving this a lot of thought because, you know, I've got some intellectual property. Maybe I could create an NFT.
Yes, and to answer Peter, I saw, yes, you can. I need to follow. Yeah, there is a website to answer your question, Peter, quickly. There is a website that is called Mintable, right? And it's a step-by-step how to mint your art. And right now, I'm being honest, it's a jungle out there because it's new. It's 1999 with regards to NFTs, right? It's not, but yeah. And you can imagine, Bruce, that if at one point, because let's say you had the Leonard shot, at one point, all the digital IP that, you know, the NBA owns could be sold, right? And on the blockchain, it's automatic. If a broadcaster in the future wants to play it, they don't have to negotiate anything. You want to use it, boom, it's automatic. It's debited. There's no you know what I mean? It's set in stone. That's why they call it smart contract. So the last one, yeah, this one I really wanna take time. Now, why do rich people have art collection? And the answer is not because they love art. Okay, next slide. So by the way, that has nothing to do with NFTs. I'm talking about physical painting, like, you know, you can see that it has art, you know, has outperformed the S&P over 25 years. But can you own a Picasso, Bruce? Do you have enough money to own a Picasso?
No.
Do you have enough money to own a Andy Warhol?
No.
I own the Andy Warhol, Bruce. Next slide, please. This company, Masterworks, what they do is really cool. And I showed you, I'm not joking, this is my account. So they call it art blue chip, okay? You said you were sometime advising family offices. This is really cool for them, all right? So Masterworks, they buy a painting, blue chip, meaning like, I know almost nothing about art, but I know Monet and Picasso. Okay, so they buy like the blue chip, right? I know Andy Warhol too. You know the Marilyn Monroe, you know, pop art, you know, the colored, he's the guy. Well, so they buy a painting at auction and they create a LLC with that, a company, and then you buy stock from the company. So I own, and because I don't go all in with those newer things, right? So I own $1,000. So how many shares? I own 50 shares of this, and they sell, yeah.
So if I could just stop you for a moment, just so everybody knows, we have gone overtime today, which is because of this is Gus's second language, and next time we have an ROI group meeting, I'm going to have to present en français and see how I do. I think it's been amazing. So we are overtime. So if people have to log off, I understand that we are recording it and it will be replayed. But this is, you know, I asked everybody to pay attention because this is really amazing stuff. Tim Reed just said, holy crap, that's amazing, Gus. And what I think I've learned from Gus over the last number of months is that you don't necessarily have to invest in this to benefit from that trend. You can invest in, say, a supplier to Tesla. like maybe there's a battery supplier to Tesla that you want to invest in. And here Gus has found a way to buy a masterpiece, an Andy Warhol or a Picasso or maybe a Monet, without actually, you know, owning the asset. And so Gus sees things differently than I do. I'm, like I said, when I did the introduction an hour and a half ago, I am very literal. I see B following A and C following B. But Gus is way ahead of me in the alphabet. He's over at MNOP.
Tim, exactly. It's fractional ownership of art. Exactly that. It's exactly that. And they said you do all the hard work, and they keep a minimum 3 years typically, and they aim for about 20% return annualized. That's their goal. I'm not saying that's not necessarily what they're going to reach, but that's roughly what they. All right, so I'll try to do quick the rest of it. The rest of it is quite easy. A quick question for you, and the last two slides is basically I want to tell you the other things I'm paying attention to. Again, it's not saying you should invest in this. It's just pay attention to this. It's really cool. So what do these three folks have in common?
Going to outer space.
Yes. So actually, I was kind of curious when I saw Brad, if I'm correct, right? Brad earlier, he wrote a piece on Bezos leaving Amazon on his slide. So my theory is that he wants to spend more time on Blue Origin. So these three billionaires, they all have a space company. So again, I'm not saying they're all actually Branson. You can invest. It's public. I'm not a shareholder of Virgin Galactic because I like the other two better. They are in different market, but pay attention to this. And the big thing that I'm paying attention is Starship, because whenever you reduce the price, let's say, of shipping a good, all right, 10 years ago, to ship 1 kilo in space was between $30,000 and $50,000. Okay, 1 kilo in space, $30,000 to $50,000. In the next, let's say, 10 years, I'm going to be really conservative. This price is going to drop to something like $15.
Wow.
Okay, and if you do a bit of research in this space, there's a lot of what is actually quite exciting for me is space manufacturing. I know that sounds sci-fi, but it's not that sci-fi. There's a lot of stuff. You know, Bruce, you're an engineer. Like when you build a bridge, it's at its weakest point when it's being constructed, right? You need all that scaffolding and right, because there's gravity. It's a pain in the ass. Gravity is a pain in the ass. So when you want to, let's say, print organ, like the cell, they collapse because of gravity, right? So space manufacturing, it might take 10, 20 years, I don't know, but like I'm paying a lot of attention to this. There's a company called Made in Space. There's a few of them. They do yeah, anyways. Next slide. These are the two most known AI company. DeepMind they were bought by Google, but they have cracked. So I sent Bruce, I try not to bother, I know he's a busy guy, but I sent Bruce a Nature article. If you know what Nature, it's a really, probably the top peer-reviewed again, paper magazine, let's say, or kind of magazine. So DeepMind, protein folding, I'm not going to go into this, but we know that AI is in the future, but it's not concrete, right? It's not like, oh yeah, AI, yeah. We use AI like easily, like we misuse AI quite a bit. Let's just say it. But AI in the next 5 to 10 years is about to get real, okay? And go on YouTube, okay? And do a video on GPT-3, okay? Golf Papa Tango 3, and see what the folks at OpenAI have been able to do for language recognition. It's crazy, it's scary, okay? When are you gonna see that, you're never going to trust Amazon review ever again. Computer, in a nutshell, computer can understand, read, and write now as good or better as a human. Today. Okay, enough with this. Next slide.
Just before we go to the next slide, Gus,
Yeah.
I have written extensively about the applications of artificial intelligence, and to me, this is probably, at least this is my view, and other people may not share it, but I think artificial intelligence, it has the greatest capability to boost individual productivity of anything that we have ever created. Imagine if you had a personal assistant who was an artificial agent, an artificially intelligent agent. And your agent, your artificially intelligent agent, I'll just call it an agent, could answer some of your email, set some of your appointments, do your income tax for you, and you know, help you do an analysis for a new project or a new investment that you're going to make. And somebody you can converse with is what Gus was just talking about in natural language, and who can butt in and say, oh, Bruce, you forgot, you promised to send Gus and Brad this, and this, and I've worked on it while you were sleepy, because human beings need to sleep. Whereas AI, perhaps they don't. Although some science fiction authors have said artificially intelligent agents may need to dream. We don't know exactly where we're going. Now, there are some scary downsides to AI. You know, if you remember the Terminator series, you know, people, the nickname for Google is Skynet, which is not a good nickname to have. But it does have, I think, set the stage for the greatest productivity improvement boom ever seen by human beings, including going back to the lever, the pulley, the printing press, of course, the personal computer, and many other inventions. All of those, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, pale compared to what an artificially intelligent agent could do for a person like me and for everybody on this call. So, you know, I see that too, Gus, and I don't, what I don't see is, I don't see the companies out there that you should invest in to take advantage of it. I see that the trend, but I don't know how to take advantage of it. And that's something that Gus knows.
Yeah, but actually the reason I bought Google stock is because it's priced as a advertising company right now,
Yep.
right? Because they don't make, yeah, but that's not what I'm interested in. That's like the past 10 years, right? Yeah, and so our previous presenter said, you know, he had passion project. This is mine. This is not to make money. I you know, I a full-time job, but I could speak for like another 2 hours on anything. So if you're interested, contact me. Yeah, you know, I don't build like teaching material, but I can do guided learning, let's say, right? I can orient you in the right direction to like look over there. This is really cool, and we can.
Can I ask you, Gus? You don't have to tell us, but I think it's fair to say that you were able to make 7 figures last year.
Yes.
And so, and I didn't make 7 figures, by the way. You know, so you know, Gus is a lot younger than me, less than half my age, I think. So he has offered everybody on the call and people who are watching this some guided learning and how to take advantage of financial literacy and disruptive tech. And he is a very, very fine mind. And as you get to know him better, I think you'll see that. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Gus, before we end for the day?
No, the only thing I said is I won't, you know, if I don't have much time to dedicate to that, but you know, so I cannot take a lot of people, but you know, I'm so passionate about all this stuff, and hopefully it has shown what I was speaking to you, that I'm having fun. You know, it's not work.
Well, you know, it was a very generous offer, and you know, as I've said on this group before, I learn almost as much, maybe sometimes more, from the people I coach than they do from me. And Gus is certainly one of those. So to everybody who's stuck it out right to the end, I want to say, really, thank you so much, Gus. Thank you, Brad. And thank you, everybody, for being on the call. The ROI group is all about trying to expand our horizons. And so it's not always about real estate. It's not always about real estate investing. Sometimes it's a little bit about life as well. And what a great presentation. Thank you very much, Gus. And be well, everybody. Be safe. See you next month.